2025 fantasy football is officially over. Now I want to take a look at what 2026 could potentially look like. In 2025, we had a bunch of running backs finish in the top 15 in scoring. Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs were the top four in scoring in half PPR, besides quarterbacks. So I took quarterbacks out. I just did top 15 running backs, receivers, tight ends in 2025. All of those top four eclipsed 300 yards in half PPR. And then there was a bunch of other running backs as well in the top 15. Definitely a year of high-end running backs. And then it kind of falls off after that. And pretty scarce wide receiver group as well. So just recapping 2025, this is the top, well, it goes all the way down, but this is essentially the top 15 I just pointed out. Starting with Christian McCaffrey, crazy season. There was a bunch of injuries to the 49ers, which kind of made him the number one target in the run game and the pass game. He had 10 rushing touchdowns and then tacked on 7 receiving touchdowns as well. This is really what pushed him to be the top fantasy player in 2025, is really the receiving yards and the receiving touchdowns he was able to grab this year. Finished with 356 points in half PPR, and it was even higher in full PPR. I believe he almost had 400 points in a full PPR format. Jonathan Taylor and then Bijan Robinson were also not far behind. Jonathan Taylor had 18 rushing touchdowns and then 2 receiving touchdowns. He really just dominated on the ground. And when Daniel Jones was healthy, Jonathan Taylor was phenomenal. And then moving on to number 3, Bijan Robinson. Really just an overall great year in a poor offense. He did rush for 7 touchdowns, 1,400 yards, and looked really well for the Falcons. Their offense and their team in general is just not the best. I think with a better overall team in 2026, he could have a really great year. And I'll get into what 2026 could look like for the first round as well. Number 4, another running back, is Gibbs for Detroit. All these guys played the full 16 games in the fantasy window, unless you're counting, I guess some leagues do 17 weeks, but this is just up to 16 weeks of actually playing. But Gibbs had a great season overall too. 13 rushing touchdowns, contributed a bunch in the pass game as well. Bijan and Gibbs had very similar seasons. I would say, so they both caught about 75 receptions. Gibbs had a bunch more rushing touchdowns, but Bijan ran the ball much more. He had about 300 more rushing yards than Gibbs. Out of this top group, McCaffrey just was incredible this season. And then it kind of falls off after those top 4. You get your first wide receiver in Puka. He only played 15 games. So definitely could have added even more. He had 9 receiving touchdowns. He just had a crazy amount of catches and yards, 119 receptions and 1,600 receiving yards in 2025. Then moving on, Achane, really great season for a mediocre offense in Miami. Rushed for 8 touchdowns, caught 4 touchdowns. Still finished with a solid point total though. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a really great season. Kind of unexpected. It was unexpected for him to finish this high, but Sam Darnold looked great in 2025. Caught 10 touchdowns, had 1,700 yards. And honestly, I think this receiving touchdown number could even increase next year in 2026. So I'll definitely get to that when I get to the rankings for 2026, the top 15 at least. Then there's a group of two here of James Cook and Derrick Henry. Both had pretty good seasons, both coming off pretty good seasons as well. Derrick Henry still showed that he has it. I still think that it'll eventually fall off a little bit, but he's really been great for a number of seasons now. So I expect that to continue in 2026 as well. Then we go to a bunch of receivers here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, George Pickens had honestly pretty much identical seasons. Both played all the games. Both had around 100 receptions, 9 touchdowns for Pickens, 11 touchdowns for St. Brown. George Pickens is a free agent, so it'll be interesting to see where he lands in 2026. I expect Amon-Ra St. Brown to continue basically exactly what he's been doing in 2026, but it'll be interesting to see where Pickens lands. At number 12, we have Trey McBride, our first and only tight end in the top 15, and I believe the only tight end in the top 40 for 2025 fantasy football. He just overwhelmed with receptions, 119. That matches Puka at 119. And he, I believe, broke the record for tight end receptions in a single season. He also had 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns on top of all the receptions. He was the clear tight end 1. Coming into 2025, he was tight end 2. Brock Bowers had an injury-riddled season. I still think he could be really, really great for 2026, but I think I'd have to go with Trey McBride over Brock Bowers as of right now going into 26. And then to wrap up the top 15, Kyren Williams, Travis Etienne, Ja'Marr Chase. I'm not surprised about the Kyren Williams at 13. He was really productive in the offense, 10 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns, and he got the ball a lot. He was really efficient as well. He was just an overall great player. Etienne was definitely a surprise to me at least, and I don't know if he'll be able to repeat this in 2026. Rushed for over 1,000 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, and then caught 6 receiving touchdowns out of the backfield, which I just don't think that's going to be repeatable. And then Ja'Marr Chase had a down year. I mean, he finished 15, but for him, that's probably a down year. In part due to Joe Burrow being injured, he did still catch 7 touchdowns and did have 1,300 yards, but if Joe Burrow's healthy next year, I still expect Ja'Marr Chase to be a top 5 player. So when we go over to 2026 rankings, you'll see kind of where I have him. Actually, let's go back to 2025 real quick. Just notable names that did not make the top 15. I ended up doing top 15, not top 12. CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, Ashton Jeanty. All those 5 names were drafted in the first round of a 15-team league in 2025. And none of them ended up in the top 15. Probably the biggest surprise for me is Barkley and Lamb. I'm really surprised that Pickens got so much attention. Obviously, Lamb was injured a few games, which hurt his fantasy points, but I'm still kind of surprised that his production did not land him in the top 15. And Saquon, a lot of people were calling it coming into 2025, and the offensive line was not as good for the Eagles, and he was just not as productive. So he kind of fell off a little bit. He's still a great pick, but definitely not a first-round talent. Now, shifting to 2026, I do have Bijan as the number 1 ranked player and RB1 as of right now. Overall, he's just a dominant player. Last season, 7 rushing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns. I think the rushing touchdown upside can increase. I also think he can be used a lot better in the pass game as well. He had a ton of yards last year. If we go back to 2025 stats, he had 810 receiving yards, only 4 touchdowns. I think he could get up to the 6-7 touchdown range, which would put him near what Christian McCaffrey did. And that could probably put him towards RB1 next year. Now, free agency and through the draft, they'll definitely have to improve the offensive line. I think Michael Penix will be back, obviously, as a starting quarterback. I'm not sure if that's good or bad for Bijan, but I think he has the best chance at repeating what he did this year and possibly even being better than 2025. So Bijan at 1. At 2, I am going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs over Christian McCaffrey. I just get a little bit scared with McCaffrey's age still. I also am a little bit hesitant with his injury history. Obviously, he was super healthy this season and can definitely repeat that. And Gibbs has not been hurt at all, really, and also had a great 2025. He's also still improving as a player. He's pretty young. I'm not sure his exact age, but last season, 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns rushing. I think he's still going to be great in Detroit's offense, and I'm expecting a little bit of regression from McCaffrey. But I do have McCaffrey at 3, still a workhorse back. He was great out of the backfield. He is obviously a year older, but I don't think that should affect him too much, honestly. So that's why I have him at number 3. Now, moving on, first wide receiver, I do have Ja'Marr Chase as wide receiver 1 in 2026. And the biggest reason I have him as wide receiver 1 is really just due to Joe Burrow staying healthy. You know, if you're putting injuries aside for him, I think if Burrow stayed healthy, he was a top 5 player in 2025. Even with all the injuries, he was top 15. And I think with a healthy Burrow all season, he's wide receiver 1 easily in 2026. But honestly, right behind Chase, Puka Nacua at 5, Jackson Smith-Njigba at 6. They're both incredible. They had great seasons in 2025. And I honestly don't see a reason that they wouldn't repeat that in 2026. Puka can't really get much better than he did this year. 119 receptions, 9 touchdowns. I think with Davante Adams still in that offense, I don't see Nacua really breaking past what he's done in 2025. But with JSN, I can see a little bit of improvement. He definitely can catch more passes. I'm not sure how many, but he definitely can. He had 10 receiving touchdowns, which was great. I think he could even get more. He's also so young, still improving. Kenneth Walker's a free agent in that Seattle offense. I think he probably leaves in free agency. They'll still have Zach Charbonnet, but I think they could even run the offense more through JSN than they did in 2025. All right, moving on to number 7, I have Jonathan Taylor as RB4 in 2026, but 7 overall. Daniel Jones will be back and be healthy, and he had a great year in 2025, even despite Daniel Jones getting hurt towards the later half of the season. 18 rushing touchdowns, which I would say obviously not necessarily repeatable, but can he get close to that again? Definitely. He did it in, I believe, 2021 or 2022, and now does it again in 2025. So I think it's definitely repeatable or close to repeatable, and he could probably even expand on his use in the pass game too. Only 360 yards and 2 touchdowns via the pass. With these other running backs here, like McCaffrey and Bijan even, and Gibbs, they had 7 and then 4 touchdowns receiving. At number 8, I'm going to go Devon Achane from Miami. He will be running back 5. I think the overall offense kind of let Achane down a little bit. I mean, he has the potential of being RB1, but Miami's offense is such a mess. They're going to move on from Tua in 2026, I believe, and either bring someone in or go with someone in their building. But if they can get their offense back on track, I think his rushing touchdowns can increase. If they have a better quarterback, I think that opens his rushing opportunity up for even more rushing yards. He's a super dynamic player, so he definitely has the upside. Now I'm going to go 9 and 10, CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown back-to-back at wide receiver 4 and wide receiver 5. Now, obviously, I just spoke of CeeDee Lamb having a down season, but he was injured, I believe, for several games. Let's see where he ranks here. Okay, so CeeDee Lamb down here at 40 overall. He only played 13 games, though. If you tack on 3 more games, he's right up there, probably in the top 15 of all these players. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for him to stay healthy. I think Dak Prescott will be perfectly fine feeding him the ball. And then, obviously, I said earlier, George Pickens is a free agent. He might be back with Dallas. I doubt he will be, just because of how much someone will probably pay him in the offseason. I don't think Dallas will have the money to pay him. CeeDee Lamb at number 9, wide receiver 4 in 2026. And then St. Brown, I think what he did in 2025 is pretty repeatable. If we look here, 100 catches, 11 touchdowns, receiving 1,200 yards. And he's done that, I believe, multiple years now. So I think it's pretty repeatable. I have him he finished at 10 in 2025. I have him at 10 in 2026. I don't think much will change for him next year. And then in between 10 and 12 here, I do go with another running back. James Cook, I have him right back in the top 11 here. I think he can pretty much repeat what he did in 2025. If we go over here, played a full season, 1,600 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns. And he even had more rushing touchdowns in 2025 or 2024, I believe. A lot of those touchdowns this year got taken away from Josh Allen at the goal line. So I think this is definitely repeatable in a Bills offense that pretty much runs through Allen and Cook. Unless they upgrade a bunch in the receiving core, I think James Cook should be right back in the top 10. First and only tight end at number 12, Trey McBride. I think he's worthy of a first-round pick. He's separated himself in 2025 as the clear tight end 1. Full season, healthy, even with a backup quarterback. Brissett came in about halfway through the season. I'm not sure what they're going to do at quarterback, but whoever it is, I think they'll feed Trey McBride. I don't think they'll have a problem with receptions. And the only thing that really bounced up for him this year was his touchdowns. 11 receiving touchdowns this year, and that put him in the first round of 2025, essentially. I think he was being drafted as like a 2nd to 3rd round pick. So it's pretty good value if you took McBride. I think it's repeatable in 2026. That's why I have him at 12. And then 2 wide receivers in a row here at 13 and 14. I'm going to go Malik Nabers and Drake London. Now, Nabers obviously tore his ACL, I believe, or MCL, whatever it was, in his knee. But he looked pretty good with Jackson Dart when Dart came in. I don't know if it was for 1 or 2 games, but they looked pretty good. And I think Dart will be able to get him the ball in 2026. It's definitely an upsidey play, for sure. Kind of same with Drake London. I'm a little unsure of both of those guys, but I think they have the upside to be top 15 picks and finish in the top 15 if they stay healthy. And then at 15, I am going to go Saquon Barkley. He was left out of the top 2025 15 players, but I think he can get back to the top 15 in 2026. He is a year older, but their offense was really, really beat up in 2025. When there's not a great offense, there's not many holes. He definitely was a victim of that in this season, and I think he can get back to good production. Okay, so he finished 20. He finished 5 out of the top 15. I don't think it's that much of a reach for him to get back. If he has 2 more touchdowns on the season, he's probably in the top 15 players in 2025. So I think he can definitely get back there. Should be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. If they make a run in the playoffs, if they don't make a run in the playoffs, I think they need to upgrade their offensive line if they're going to continue to be injury riddled. That is going to wrap up the top 15 for 2026 fantasy football. I'm sure this will change a lot. I'll probably have rankings out on my Twitter, so be sure to check that out. I really, really enjoyed betting and then also playing fantasy football in 2025. It's going to be a great year in 2026. I'll be doing a bunch of best ball content, a bunch of fantasy football content, and then obviously a bunch of betting content. So look out for all of that. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll be back soon with some more NFL fantasy content.